Hello everyone, welcome to Anime No Mi, and thank you for joining us for another One Piece video. Currently in our story of One Piece, Luffy has just awakened a great power that he does not have complete control over yet because he just unlocked it. So Luffy is not able to use Gear 5th to its fullest extent. In order for Luffy to really learn the full potential of this devil fruit of his, it may be necessary for him to have a long training to discover all of the potential of its power and also to make it consume less of his energy. So in today's video, we're going to talk about the possibility of a time skip that will happen so the Straw Hats can perfect all of their new powers that they just got out of this Wano arc, and how this time skip could happen. But before we dive into the video, if you're new to the channel or even if you've been around for several episodes, we'd be absolutely honored if you consider leaving us a like or maybe even subscribing with a comment letting us know what you thought of the video. It really helps us out and motivates us to make more content, and if you'd like to help out the channel in a bigger way, consider sharing the video or the channel with a friend. But without further ado, let's get into the video. So friends, throughout this arc in Wano, we've seen that many of the Straw Hats have managed to acquire new powers that are going to make them much stronger and able to take on many more powerful enemies in the future. But these acquired powers are going to need some pretty good levels of training. Mostly we're talking about Luffy, Sanji, Nami, Robin, Zoro. We could even put in some arguments for, say, like, even Chopper, because he's kind of now, gone through his whole thing with the Isoni virus. But these are most of the people who've gained the big bumps and increases in power throughout this Wano arc. And through this increase in power, they've also managed to now open up greater possibilities and strengths that they may need for the final battle. The first power-up we're going to talk about, of course, is Nami's Climb Attack, where she was able to obtain several new powerful techniques that not only allow her to manipulate time in a really short space, but also has really taken all of her attacks to a next level. You see, during the whole Cake Island arc, Nami met Zeus, which of course was a lightning cloud that had been created by Mom's Soto no Mi fruit. And Zeus has weather properties and can bring down huge bolts of electricity and generate lightning, and even as a means of kind of transportation if Nami wanted. As Nami slowly befriended Zeus and fed him from her own climb attack, Zeus ended up turning on Big Mom and started to obey Nami's commands. And he was even able to help her in combat when she needed his help, and was able to even store Zeus inside her climb attack so that he wouldn't attract as much attention just being this kind of stalking cloud floating around next to her. With Zeus kind of living inside the climb attack, it gave a natural boost to Nami's powers with the weather, allowing lightning to be created much easier since Zeus is a cloud that already generates his own large amounts of energy. But after Whole Cake and moving into the Wano arc, Big Mom tries to get Zeus back. But after Zeus finally refuses and goes against Big Mom's orders, Big Mom makes a new cloud and decides to have her try and eat Zeus. And Hera basically takes over Zeus's role around Big Mom. But in that moment, something really surprising happened. Nami had thought Zeus had completely lost his life after being eaten by Hera, but Nami is surprised to discover that Zeus has now integrated himself completely with her climb attack and is just living inside the weapon now. But with Zeus's soul now living inside the climb attack, it not only allowed Nami and him to be together, but he was able to still use most of his powers in conjunction with Nami's climb attack. With this upgrade, we see that the climb attack now not only just changes form any way that Nami wishes, but she can scale it up and even have her lightning change direction. And Zeus is able to temporarily transfer his consciousness to the clouds that Nami summons, where he's able to take on the form of like an old cloud or even help aim and work with Nami in battle. But as we've seen, Nami and Zeus still only have a few rudimentary attacks to work together. And in order for them to take on bigger and bigger enemies, through a time skip, Nami would be able to work much more deeply with Zeus, and they'd be able to really increase and if not maximize their combat potential. The next power that we saw during Wano's arc that we're going to talk about is of course from Nico Robin, where we saw a whole new set of powers that could become all the more powerful in the future if she manages to train and use them for the upcoming final battle arcs. During the 2-year time skip, Robin was sent to be with the revolutionaries by Kuma, and during that time, Robin learned the fundamentals of fishman karate, at least in the context of palm strikes by Koala and several others in the Revolutionary Army. Since then, Robin has learned to incorporate the effects of fishman karate into her flower style, allowing her to easily break down structures with precise palm strikes. But as we saw, although Robin has become incredibly powerful and seeing her other techniques with maybe even incorporation of, say, hockey, she still nowhere near as adept as, say, Jinbei, who of course is a master of fishman karate. So through training together with Jinbei, now that he's an official member of the crew, Robin would be able to perfect this fishman karate technique in conjunction with her flower fruit. Once perfected, she'd be able to use this new transformation that we saw during her fight called Demono Fleur, where she was able to use fishman karate and armament hockey, which pretty much took Robin to a whole other level, as we saw in her fight against Black Maria. But of course, this technique still takes a pretty heavy toll on Robin, so with her training, she'd be able to build up the stamina and everything necessary to even expand upon the little technique that we saw in her fight. Moving on to our next crew member, of course, we saw amazing growth during the Wano arc from Zoro, and Zoro was able to end up using a technique that many fans didn't believe he could use. And of course, it was during his fight with Kaido that we saw that Zoro has unlocked Conqueror's Haki, which of course allowed Zoro to land a blow and injure Kaido's body. By combining his Ashura technique with this Haki, Zoro was able to reopen the wound that Odin had made on Kaido in the past, even though he really wasn't consciously yet using Conqueror's Haki in the way that we had seen others use it in the arc. But just consider, once Zoro was able to completely combine Conqueror's Flow or Conqueror's Coding to his attacks, Zoro would theoretically be able to cut through anything he wants, even the body of any Yonko that stood in his way. And by gaining control of his Conquerors and therefore Enma, Zoro would be able to increase his strength in order to finally have his final confrontation with Mihawk and become the greatest swordsman in the world. Speaking of Mihawk for just a second, since he is the greatest swordsman in the world and once was a rival of Shanks, it is absolutely probable that he not only possesses an incredibly high level of mastery of Haki, but may in fact possess conquerors just like Shanks does. So as Zoro is looking to take the final mantle and take the title of greatest swordsman in the world from Mihawk, he's gonna have to learn how to use this Haki to the highest level possible. And finally, and last but certainly not least, is our rubbery Captain Luffy, who of course managed to awaken his devil fruit, and we discovered that Luffy doesn't just have this simple Gomu Gomu no Mi, but rather the Hito Hito no Mi model Nika, a fruit considered legendary by the Gorosei because no one has been able to awaken its power for over 800 years. As we saw in one of the scenes with the Gorosei, they talked about the awakening of this fruit of the sun god Nika has the most ridiculous power of all because it gives the bearer a great deal of freedom, limiting itself only to the creativity of its user. The biggest feature that we saw demonstrated that makes this fruit extremely powerful is of course the body change that this fruit does to its user, because by eating this fruit and unlocking it, Luffy was able to get his body and even his organs and surroundings into rubber. In really, not for the pun, but comical ways, Luffy was able to stretch, bend, jump, inflate, twist, enlarge, decrease his body in any way he wanted, and allowed him to create some really crazy and creative attacks with his new body. One of the major benefits of this fruit being a Zoan, that is, it allowed the effects of the Gomu Gomu no Mi to always be active, making his body permanently rubbery, not needing to activate or think about turning his body into rubber. So because his body is in this permanent rubbery state, melee attacks and projectiles are pretty much ineffective against Luffy because they just bounce right off every bit of his rubbery body. Even falling from extremely high places or blunt trauma can't hurt him because his body's gonna act like a rubber ball in the fall, and Luffy would just have small wounds that really aren't gonna leave any lasting damage. Furthermore, because of the natural insulating properties of rubber, Luffy also is immune to all electrical attacks directed at him. Now, we saw this back in, the Skypiea arc, but it seemed that with this awakening, he was able to take this natural immunity to a whole new level. And it also seemed that somehow, when Luffy was underwater and still able to use the voice of all things, maybe this insulating property of rubber is something that granted him some resistance to the underwater pressure effects. So with Luffy's ability to stretch and twist in any way that he wishes, it makes him not only have a great defense against physical attacks and great strength to sling out his attacks, but it also gives him the ability to recover and also reach people far away from his position. After being able to awaken his fruit, Luffy also had a change in his appearance, where his hair became flaming white and his eyes were much more manic and round, and he had an aura of steam that floated around him. And of course, the stereotypical huge smile on his face, like everything that was going on was funny and just like he was having a great time. And of course, with this awakening, Luffy gains the ability to freely alter his body and his surroundings any way he wishes, where he can inflate his muscles without his need to blow air into them like we've seen in Gear 3rd. And as I just mentioned, Luffy's also able to change change his environment around him, similar in a way of an awakened paramecia fruit, where we saw that he was able to rip up the ground and bend it like rubber and reflect one of Kaido's fire blast attacks right back at him. And with his ability to alter everything around him, this basically made that Luffy was able to tank immensely powerful hits from Kaido and really just kind of take him as if they were nothing. But as we can consider that there are many more powerful enemies on the horizon, it means that Luffy's gonna really need to increase this power, because it's gonna basically be the end game thing that is gonna let him take on these enemies that are yet to come. And of course, the time skip isn't a thing just for Luffy, but really all the Straw Hats, where all of them could be strengthened during this time skip, where they would finally be at the place they need to be, where they can be successful and victorious against these very last and probably most dangerous enemies of all. And most importantly, through this time skip, the Straw Hats wouldn't just be able to come up with new techniques, but as we've been revealed to us throughout Wano, there are many more higher levels of Haki yet to be seen, with observation and armament, and of course now with conquerors. So this means that we're really gonna see a bloom in what can be done with Haki. Because remember back to that iconic line where when Kaido is fighting against Luffy, that he said that it really wasn't about devil fruits, because of course Roger was able to conquer the Grand Line with Haki alone. So that line tells us, and may even be foreshadowing, that Haki is that next kind of new frontier that needs to be conquered by the Straw Hats before they take on the final big bad. But in fairness, as we get ready to wrap up, I also want to acknowledge the fact that just as this kind of a time skip would give the Straw Hats the ability to increase in strength, it would also give time to their enemies. And with the emergence of the SSG and everything that portends with them, even though we haven't fully seen them yet, we have to wonder, is time something that we really want to give to our enemies? And do we want to give them time to make more plans and have more contingencies that will hinder our wonderful Straw Hat crew from achieving all of their goals? But with all that said, I'd love to know what you think about it. Do you think that there's a possibility of a time skip? And if not, how do you think each of these kind of bumps in power and study could happen? And also, if we forgot anybody, what other powers on the crew do you think we really should give time to nurture? Let us know what you think about all that in the comments below. So with all that said, friends, I want to thank you all so much for watching the video to the very end. Be sure you comment on any themes or ideas that you'd like to see in future videos. And also, since you made it this far, why don't you give us a like or hit that red subscribe button before you head out to take on the rest of your day. I hope to see you all in our next video, and let's keep sailing this giant sea together. Take care.